morning, everyone. I appreciate the early start. We have a busy day today. I would call this session of Council to order, and I would ask the clerk to read the roll, please.
Councillor Arnold. Present. Councillor Bushey. Present. Councillor Bradley. Present. Councillor Broad. Present. Councillor Brusewich. Present. Councillor Case. Present. Councillor Cook. Present. Councillor Gilliland. Present. Councillor Gillis. Here. Councillor Hand. Councillor McDougall. Here. Councillor Marriott. Present. Councillor McCharles. Present. Councillor McGugan. Present. Councillor Napper. Present. Councillor Veen. And Warden Weber.
Present.
The roll has been called and you have a quorum.
I would ask that we begin our council session today with a tribute to the men of the 149th Battalion, Lambton Battalion, and ask you to please rise. On March 28, 1917, the brave men of the 149th Lambton Battalion left Halifax Harbour on a journey overseas to the battlefields of Europe, where they were confronted by the horrors of the First World War, in service to King and country. Staff of the Cultural Service Division have consulted the resources of our county archive to prepare a brief presentation of each of the names of the members of the battalion that left home for war just over 100 years ago. The names of the over 400 soldiers that embarked from Halifax in March of 1917 will scroll on screen as we pause for a moment of silent reflection to mark this important anniversary and honor their tremendous valor and sacrifice. As we all know well, many of these men did not return to Lambton County, paying the ultimate price of victory with their lives. We will always remember them and all those that have served to protect our nation. Please be seated. The image that wraps around the council chambers captures the 149th Lambton Battalion in September of 1916. The battalion spent the winter there while they were training at Camp Borden before heading overseas. This exhibit will remain up until Remembrance Day, and we invite members of the public to visit the council chambers to view the image in honor of the anniversary. We also encourage their assistance in helping the staff of the Cultural Service Division to identify the individuals in the photograph should they have information. Thank you. Moving on, I would ask if anyone has a pecuniary interest to declare it now. Seeing none, I would call for a motion. We have 4 delegations. I would call for a motion to allow the delegations within the bar. Councillor Boucher, Councillor Marriott. All in favor of that? That's carried. Thank you very much. And as we do have 4 delegations, I would ask them to try to maintain the time limit. Calling first students from St. Patrick's High School regarding a special project relating to Canada's 150. I was not there. Welcome. That's what it says.
Good morning, Lambton County Council. We are students from St. Patrick's Catholic High School, and we have started a project called I Was Not There. I am Ben White, the project manager. This is Ian Linton, the assistant public relations, Levi McKinley, who is the assistant project manager, and Austin Cormier, who is head of tech. We are very excited to be here in front of you, and we thank you for letting us share our project with you. We would first like to share a little video about us with you.
Hello everybody, my name is Nick Parks.
Hello, I'm Levi McKinley.
We are students at St. Patrick's High School in Sarnia, Ontario, and we are working on a virtual reality project called I Was Not There. This project takes the new technology of 360 cameras to show you a new side of Lambton County and celebrate Canada's upcoming 150th birthday.
The main focus of our project is to showcase the historical sites of Lambton County in a new and exciting way. 360 cameras let us drop the viewer into the historical site itself and experience a whole new world around them.
We want to film at various sites around the county of Lambton and drop you into the action.
One of the sites we visited was St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church. We got a great opportunity to see and experience the amazing church, and we got a bunch of 360 footage of the beautiful main room with a massive organ that spans the front and the back of the church. And we got to see the oldest stained glass window in Sarnia.
And we want to drop you into the experience. We believe this project is an amazing opportunity for Lambton County and for Canada. We thank you for letting us share this project with you, and we are super excited. Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
We would like to share more insight about our project, what we are working on, and what we plan to accomplish. Our project's main goal is to showcase the history of Lambton County by visiting historical sites around the county and to capture images and videos with new 360-degree cameras to drop the viewer in the middle of Lambton County's rich history. We want to show off 10 wonders of Lambton County. Some of the locations we are looking at and researching are Oil Springs, Moortown Museum, and Kettle and Stony Point. Our class started this project by first learning about the technology of 360-degree cameras. We then learned that no one has done anything like this around Lambton. We then thought it was an amazing opportunity to share Lambton's story just in time for Canada's 150th anniversary. What we plan to accomplish with this project is to create a new interest in Lambton County and to create a new tool to expand tourism, education, and entertainment in Lambton County. We want to show our pride in Lambton County, and with this new technology, we can show it in a new way. What we would like to show you is this new way of looking at Lambton County with a 360-degree video on our website.
In 1841, there was a little church out in the front lawn, faced north. And in 1841 onwards, a lot of Scots left Scotland, and we are the Church of Scotland Presbyterian. So that little church became too small. So they built this church from that post to that post. And then there was a big influx of Scottish settlers, and most of from that post to that post became too small. So they built on the two wings from the post to the window. And then it
For the sake of time, we're going to stop the video and continue on here. So as we begin our journey into the world of 360 video, we started with some test shots in our classroom so that we could get an idea on how to edit the 360 videos. After we became comfortable with editing, we went to St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church, which is the oldest church in Sarnia. I was also one of the leads on designing the website. We used a software called Wix to help us create our domain and create our page. We created it to make it intriguing and easy to maneuver, from a selection of 360 pictures and footage to a section of old photos of Lambton County. We also used the editing software Final Cut to help create more interesting videos and to help create a real sense of the location and to have every aspect in the video. We cut videos, added music and pictures, fixed any problems, and helped create an amazing experience for you.
Creating this project will be a very exciting and amazing experience, but it will face some challenges. One of the largest roadblocks for us is funding. 360 cameras are a very new technology, so they are quite expensive. We would also need funds for transportation, website management fees, technology equipment, and more. This is a basic spreadsheet of what we have drawn up so far.
We would again like to thank Lambton County Council for letting us share this project with you. We would also like to thank the press, and we would love your input and support on this project. We have a table outside the chambers which has the rest of the St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church video for anyone who would like to experience this new technology. Thank you and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you for that presentation. I see a question, Councillor Bradley.
Thanks very much. I think all of us are very impressed with what you're doing.
Thank you.
Read the spreadsheet with how much you might request from Lambton County Council. How much would you be looking for from County Council, or have you determined that?
We haven't exactly determined the amount that we would require, but we right now are just running up some basics, and any information anyone would require we can certainly provide at a later date.
Okay. Councillor Brusewitz.
I had the same question. I could not read the spreadsheet. I'm half blind anyway. But so the information would be coming in specific terms. The next council meeting, is that correct? So we would have all the spreadsheets and everything else. Yeah.
We will create up the amount that would be required or estimated we would need to create this project. Right now, we're just estimating what we would need, but we would have a better understanding then.
This one is technical. You mentioned software called Wix, is that correct? Is that W-I-C-K-S? Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. There'll be more information coming back. Councillor Gillis.
Bristol County Council, to our presenters, again, thank you very much. I'm looking at your ages. I'm wondering where you are in your academic career, and if this group that's working on this is broader than what I'm seeing.
Yeah, we are all in grade 11 communications technology class, and this is the project that we are working on. We are only the 4 that came up to present, but there's more of us that are in the hallway right now who are going to be running the table, and there's some others that are currently at our school. We are all 16 to 17, and we all thought that this would be a great project to work on in Lambton and in Canada.
That it is a great project, but I guess I'm looking at, do you have a committee within the school that it will continue on once you graduate out? because it's a grade 11 project, but are you expanding it to the whole school so that it's a project of the school?
We are hoping that this project, this is a single project, but we hope it does go on further and that it can leave a major mark in Lambton County.
Thank you. Councillor McGugan.
Yeah. Mr. Warden, members of County Council, I say thank you ever so much for that excellent presentation. Now, I represent the municipality of Brook Galveston on the very far side of our county. I'll give you my card. I appreciate it if you contact me. We'd be happy to have you come out someday because we do go back into you mentioned 1841. Our municipality was really organized in 1832 or 3. And Mormons went through Galveston on the Nauvoo Road in 1860. So there is some history over there. I'd be happy to talk with you. Be happy to have you come out someday, and we'll even have lunch.
Thank you so much. We would love to meet with you.
Thank you. I guess thank you for your presentation. We will look forward to more information coming.
Dinner.
Thank you.
I'm sure this will be a great tool to promote the county and preserve our history in a way that is unique and new technology-wise. So thank you for your presentation. Our next presenter is Mr. Chris Gould from Blue Water Power, and to talk to us about the Intelligent Community Forum Award. Welcome, Chris.
Do I have the presentation? Good morning to the council. I really thank you very much for having me today. I'm honored to be here speaking with you today about about Sarnia Lambton's accomplishments with the ICF, the Intelligent Community Forum. Those of you who don't know me, again, I'm Chris Gould from Blue Water Power. I'm a licensed electrician, started in the trade in 1999, spent 7 years with the skilled trades workforce, joined Imperial Oil's Sarnia Refinery and Chemical Plant in 2006, spent 4.5 years operating their distribution system. In 2012, I was lucky enough to join Blue Water Power, a progressive utility. At the very core of our existence is delivering services reliably to our community. In recent years, I've been asked to deploy a fiber optic network. The Blue Water Regional Network's an affiliate of Blue Water Power, which is the fundamental core of that business, is delivering access, connectivity, affordable connectivity in areas where it's required in our area. Speak specifically to you today about the Intelligent Community Forum. For those of you, hopefully everybody's aware, Sarnia Lambton and Lambton County have been in the top 21 recognized intelligent communities in the world for the last 2 years. What is the ICF? What is the Intelligent Community Forum? They're a think tank based out of New York. There's 3 co-founders, two people from the telecommunications industry and one from urban planning, a guy actually from Toronto. And what they do is through an application process, they take in approximately 450 last year, but between 400 and 500 communities apply annually. And they, through that application process, they determine a Smart 21, a Smart 7, and eventually a top intelligent community in the world annually. And through that research, through that application process, they do research on the communities, and specifically their use of information and technology to do things like to build inclusive prosperity, to solve social problems, and enrich the quality of the lives for the residents. They're founded on 6 pillars: broadband, which no longer will it be a luxury, but they're looking at it as the next essential utility, a service that's required to be always on. In serviced areas are recognized as areas that have access to 5 megabit per second connectivity or broadband access, but there is a 50% compound annual growth rate. So what you have required today for your home or business, you'll need about 7.5 times that in 5 years. knowledge workforce. It's communities that understand that they need to develop a knowledge workforce right from the shop floor to the executive level in industry. Not only develop those people, but continually improve that knowledge training to retain that knowledge workforce and to attract new people to it. Innovation. It was recognized in the late 80s that 80% of economic growth comes through the use of technology. And again, back to broadband. Broadband allows people to learn more at a higher rate of speed, learn more quickly and at higher rates of speed than ever before. So innovation is key to the pillars. Digital equality. This pillar actually changed from digital inclusion recently to digital equality. What they were finding was that more concentrated populous areas who had more access or better access to broadband connectivity, they were actually excluding people more from that global and broadband economy at a faster rate than they were including people. So they've termed it now digital equality, where they want everybody to have adequate access, affordable access, and then also train people on how to use it adequately or better so that they can compete on that global market. Sustainability, again, economic growth uses resources and produces waste. So they look at communities who understand that they need to continue to drive economic growth but reduce the negative impact on the environment. And then advocacy is a few things. It's about advocating for your community, but it's also about being change champions. So it's communities who understand that change is required, where it's required, and the challenges that go with it, and then engaging community leaders and citizens to create positive change, so becoming change champions. What has it done? It's built a global network of hundreds of communities around the world who, through these summits and through these interactions, they get an opportunity to collaborate on ECDEV initiatives and also learn and share with others about what they've learned. What's an intelligent community? So through crisis or foresight, and crisis I would say, so some communities, some of the intelligent communities you're going to hear a little bit about today have seen major downturns in the economy, a major employer leaves, or they understand we're doing well today, but what do we need to do in the future to continue to be relevant? And then take conscious steps to make those changes and do the things they need to do, reinvent themselves if necessary, or do what they need to do to make sure that they're competitive on the global scale. They also foster what they call triple helix collaborations, which are partnerships between government, education, and industry, something we do very well here in Lambton County. So what I'm specifically here today to speak a little bit about is the delegation that was sent to Taiwan and how we got there. Again, Lambton was ranked top 21 2 years in a row. We created a task force mid-year last year to put a top 7 application together, made up of the Sarnia-Lambton Economic Partnership, City of Sarnia, Lambton County, us, Blue Water Power and Blue Water Regional Networks, and the Lambton College. George Millay also was lucky enough to bring in a fellow named David Hicks, who was an author, who helped us write the application for top 7. He was successful for 3 top 7 applications in Stratford. And then we were asked by ICF Canada to join their delegation to ICF to Taiwan for the announcement of ICF Taiwan, and to learn from the other intelligent communities in Taiwan and to share our learnings here in Lambton County. So again, we visited 5 cities in Taiwan. All of them we learned about their intelligent community initiatives, and they heard about ours. We traveled on the high-speed train. Traveled about the distance in about an hour and 45 minutes. We went the equivalent of Sarnia to Ottawa, so basically to Ottawa for lunch and back type thing. In Tainan City, we learned about smart blood pressure meters, where they've deployed these smart blood pressure meters around the city. Patients can go and take their blood pressure reading. It automatically sends the data to their healthcare provider, trends that data for them. If there are anomalies, it triggers a healthcare to reach out to that patient to bring them in. If there are major abnormalities, it will also notify the next of kin to tell them, here's where your loved one is and they're ailing or whatever the case may be. Here's a picture of Bill Weber sitting in the speaker's chair in Tainan at the council chambers. They were very open with us. It was an incredible learning opportunity for all of us. In Hsinchu County in Taiwan, we learned about a smart crime detection system that they've implemented. 35 cameras within the city limits, identifies the situation and automatically escalates it to the appropriate personnel. Since it was deployed 2 years ago, there have been 0 cold case files in the area, all of them, none unsolved, no unsolved cases. an eco park where they offer free Wi-Fi to all of the patrons of the park, but they also use RFID tags so people can understand, learn about the vegetation, learn about the animals and the wildlife, and learn about the monuments that are there in the park. Transportation is a problem everywhere. In New Taipei City, they use a T-bike program, has Internet of Things analytics on the bikes to tell them the health of the bike, but also allows the rider to interact with the bike and use GPS and whatnot with their smartphone and their health app. Far Eastern Group was a major telecommunications company there in New Taipei City. They have what they call the T-Park, which is a smart facility from security all the way to watershed management for the property. It was a valuable trade mission. We got, in these 5 cities that we visited, we got the opportunity to have lunch and meet with these people, hear their intelligent community initiatives, and for them to hear ours. And we got the opportunity to talk and share. And what's come out of that is several discussions, and just to name a few are a telehealth technology who's looking for an opportunity to partner and develop in North America. An Internet of Things, smart building and smart home facility. This young fella actually uses facial recognition. In his demo, he opened his garage door 250 kilometers away, declined the first face and recognized the second face and opened the door. He'd like to come and partner with us in North America because they have problems with connectivity and broadband in rural areas out there as well. Energy Group looking for potential funding opportunities to fund potential projects here in Canada that we're also speaking to. This is a good example. I won't belabor it, but Far Eastern Group, we met them on Monday. On Friday, they actually put a presentation on where they identified they connected their network across the oceans in their submarine cables all the way to our portion of the country here in southwestern Ontario. What's neat about all of these, and I'm getting to the end of my presentation here, I will make sure that I'm done on time. But what we found is all of the top 7 and top 21 talk about what they call the ICF effect, and what being recognized in Smart 21, Smart 7, and one of the most intelligent communities in the world has done for them. Eindhoven had Philips, was a major employer, pulled out. They had to reinvent themselves. They've coined the term Brainport. Now they do consulting for other ICF communities around the world. Dublin, Ohio, 45,000 residents, 75% of whom below the poverty line. They deploy municipal broadband. They allow companies to compete on the global scale. Now they have more Fortune 100 companies than any other city in the world. Stratford, Ontario, followed the same process. Now they're having things like they have University of Waterloo has located a facility there, a data center, and Lexus has announced they're going to do some autonomous vehicle testing. My time is up.
You carry on.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I will go through it very quickly. Again, on the ICF effect, Bindong region in South Korea has recognized that it's important that this is valuable to communities. They've created what they call the Smart Region. I met a few of these guys, learned a couple of the things that they're doing. They're coming here in May, late May. They'd like to meet with us to talk about a few things. But what I said to them was I didn't recognize Bindong on the Smart 21 list, and they said, no, we haven't even applied yet. We're not applying for another 2 to 3 years. We're positioning ourselves to become the smart region in the world. That's an example of the ICF effect. And now Lambton County and Sarnia-Lambton are being recognized in this ICF community. We're already noticing the ICF effect. They're interested to hear what we're doing at these summits. I think this picture right here is the farewell dinner on Friday night, and I think it's very telling. There are actually 6 nations represented at this table. So not only were we in suits and ties and meeting with high-level the mayors of these major cities and learning about their intelligent community initiatives, but we're also spending time with people who've been there and done it, and they're interested in hearing what we're doing. So what's next for us? We've already started to talk about developing a multi-year strategy to continue to leverage our Smart 21 successes, learn from the Smart 7 failures, and then resubmit, foster the triple helix collaborations that we talked about, and leverage our eventual Smart 7 successes. We believe that we're capable, and we believe we're positioned well to do that. Build our presence, our Sarnia-Lambton presence, continue to build it in that ICF world. Also, to build the recognition in our own area, people who don't understand that we've been recognized as an intelligent community in the world. I mean, it's an incredible accomplishment, and a lot of people aren't aware of it. And then eventually a win. Maybe not top 1, hopefully, I believe top 7. I hope top 1, But even if we don't, there are other opportunities here. We're in talks about ICF institutes. There are 2 in the world, and they believe that one in Canada would do very well, and we think Sarnia-Lambton would be a great opportunity for it. Again, I ran over the time. I apologize, but I would handle any questions if there were any. Again, I thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Questions, comments from council? Councillor Bukowicz.
Mr. Gould, I really appreciate your presentation. You don't have to preach to converted already. And in some ways, you talk about recognition of this community in the world. In other ways, I almost feel that we're a little bit behind when you gave us this interactivity system in Taiwan, or a history of Eindhoven and so on. When you look at this communities that are ahead of us, have you got an idea how they finance the whole progress and the scope of the investment required to bring us to very competitive top of the world level?
So in the last 2 years being recognized in the top 21, if you look at those lists, we're recognized in there with cities like San Diego, Edmonton, Montreal, Moscow, Russia. But we're also recognized in there with cities like Wanganui in New Zealand, another 45,000 resident community. So they understand that there are different challenges, economic challenges for different sizes of communities. So the answer is we're doing great things. To be recognized 2 years in a row for the things we're doing is incredible. But to also be competing against cities like Toronto, Montreal, Edmonton, and Calgary in our own territory is incredible as well. But what they understand is that you can't do it all overnight, and that the economics have to be, and the budgeting processes have to be followed. It's that you've set out on those initiatives and that you continue to develop them. And I think I know they're looking at things year over year to say, they started here, they let it go, or no, they started it here and they pivoted it to here and they're continuing to develop it. So the answer is yes. The economic problems they understand, but they understand that if we start, that we're generally going to finish. That answer your question?
Thank you.
I would say that the first couple of days down there, we felt like we were punching way above our weight class with some of these major cities we met. Through the process, we started to meet smaller communities like ourselves, and we talked about those very challenges, and they said, we understand it, we went through it. The idea is set out, develop it, grow it, continue to build it.
Councillor Gillis.
Thank you, Warden Weaver, members of County Council, and thank you for your presentation. Thank you for enduring the long flight to Taiwan and back. One of the things you mentioned, and my colleague touched on it, was the fact that you have to tell the good news. And it's very difficult when you're working within the confines of a group that understands this concept, to tell that good news out there and why it's important and how you can get people excited about it and get them involved, but also want them to get us to get involved. So congratulations to the team, and I'm so glad that you came and told this story here today. This is live streamed. This is a good opportunity. We've got the press here. There's another good opportunity to tell the good news, so we can't tell that story too many times. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Chris. We will continue with our delegations. Mr. Al Langford, Federation of Agriculture, come forward and address the council regarding the recent municipal property assessment statements.
Good morning, Mr. Warden and fellow county councillors. My name is Al Langford. I'm current president of Lambton Federation of Agriculture. We are here today representing the second largest economic driver of Lambton County, second only to the Chemical Valley, first in food production. Just over 2,100 of our farm families. We're here to discuss the increased percentage of tax burden, which is going to be downloaded on our local farmers over the next 4 years. We have been working with our provincial representatives at the Ontario Federation of Agriculture to bring our issues to light for today's meeting. We are joined by Ben Lafort, Senior Policy Analyst, and I'll turn it over to him for the rest of it.
Good morning, and thank you, Warden, Council, staff, for having us here today to discuss this issue. It's certainly been a significant issue for our members. We've been hearing phone calls, emails, letters from all over the province, and that's mostly to do with the fact that this is pretty widespread, not just in Lambton County, but when Impact delivered its new assessments for farm properties in October, we saw throughout the province approximately and just under 70% was the average increase in taxable assessment for farmland. So it certainly that'll vary county to county, as we'll get into the specifics for Lambton County in a few slides here. But it's been a significant concern of our members. So we've been very pleased with the engagement we've had in a number of counties throughout the province, east, west, and north, between our local federations and our municipalities and counties. I think there's been a lot of really good discussions that have come out of that, so I'm glad to continue those discussions here this morning. So the issue, that we're here concerned about is the impact that these assessments will have on farm taxes. So essentially, the concern is a disproportionate increase in assessment with a status quo tax policy will lead to increased property tax burden for the farm property owners in Lambton County. So what have the assessments shaked out as? Because really the key thing isn't necessarily even what farms have increased by in Lambton, but what have farms increased by in Lambton relative to the other property classes. That was what's going to determine the tax impact, and that's why the actual tax impact is very variable from county to county. I was actually just up north, and we saw, there was one municipality where they had a 50% increase in farm assessments, but they weren't going to see much of a tax shift because residential and commercial also increased by around 50%. So that's the key thing is what is one property class assessments moving relative to the others. So we see in Lambton County approximately 65% on average increase in taxable assessment for farmland, compared to about 12% for residential, 11% for commercial, and 21% for industrial. So the biggest property class being residential, that's the most key. So farmland increasing at a rate of more than 5 times residential is the issue that will cause the more of a tax burden shift onto farm property owners. And when I'm talking about farm or tax burden, I'm really referring to the total percentage of taxes levied on one property class, and that's kind of what these assessments determine is the percentage of the total taxes that are coming from one property class. And not necessarily a new issue in Lambton. I believe in the 2012 MPAC assessments, we saw similar increases in values. So what we have on this slide here is showing the tax burden over the years, going back and looking at the FIRs for Lambton County. So in 2012, just under 3.5% of the total taxes, and this is county taxes, so we're excluding education and the lower tier municipal taxes. So we're looking strictly at the county, the taxes collected by the county. So 3.5% just under in 2012, and projecting out, if it's about 3% increase in the budget and the same tax ratios over the next 4 years, given the impact assessments, that would rise to nearly 8%. So over that 8-year period, more than doubling the percentage of the total taxes coming off, frankly, the same amount or fewer acres of total farmland. So it's not quite like residential where you can build new houses and spread that throughout additional properties. This is, a more than doubling of the tax burden on the same number of acres that we're dealing with. And then on the right there, just kind of showing you kind of the dollar impacts they could potentially have. What's the cost, to pay 8% of the budget rather than 3.46% as that budget increases over the years. So significant dollars as that adds up over that 8-year period. So essentially, the previous assessment is behind us, so our request was really going to be more focusing on the impacts of this assessment. So kind of conceding that the last assessment's already happened, we are at the new kind of reality. They're paying, closer to 5.5%, so of the total taxes. So that's kind of the line that we're requesting to maintain at. So the farm taxes have been increasing over the years, but it's continuing at a significant rate due to these assessments. I quickly want to touch on some of the work that OFA has been doing at the municipal sector. I know I see Councillor Case is here, and when he was representing the Warden's Caucus, I had a chance to meet with him and John as well from the staff level on connecting links and a few other issues that we were able to work on with the Western Warden's Caucus. We were very happy to do so, and we actually were successful in getting that connecting links program reinstated, and that was a great kind of template of the partnership and what we can get done by working together. And since then, in October, we had the Western and Eastern Wardens chairs join OFA at our lobby day in Queen's Park to lobby on natural gas access in rural Ontario. And since then, I have also had the opportunity to meet with staff from Eastern and Western Wardens and counties in Eastern and Western Ontario to discuss, how we can get better funding for rural roads and bridges and essential infrastructure. So I did quickly want to highlight that because it does in a way feed into this. Access to natural gas, access to broadband, better roads and bridges is going to lead to it being rural Ontario being a better place to do business, meaning more commercial industrial assessment, meaning kind of a rising tide situation where the tax burden for all property taxpayers is alleviated when we're in that kind of situation rather than losing commercial industrial, which puts more strain on residential and farm property taxes and makes it more difficult for you folks to deliver the services you need to deliver. So just wanted to quickly touch on that because that's one of the great things I think that's come out of these discussions is an opportunity to work with our municipal sector on areas of common concern like natural gas, broadband, infrastructure. There's a whole lot of things we can be working together on, and I hope we can continue to do that both at the provincial level and at the local level. I was in Oxford County a couple weeks ago, and they pretty much had decided to reduce the farm tax ratio with the caveat that the local federation and OFA work with them on economic development issues, which we're more than happy to do. And I think what was recognized there is that we can get more done by kind of working together at a local and provincial level than, constantly addressing the same issue each year. We can get more done, they thought, and I agreed, by reducing that ratio, kind of ending that conversation and moving the conversation forward to roads, bridges, natural gas, broadband, all of the things that we can be working on together to push our local counties and rural Ontario forward. So back to the property tax burden. So we see the impact assessments have disproportional for farmland. They've increased significantly. And over that 8-year period, we're going to be seeing a more than doubling of that tax burden on local farm property owners. How do we avoid that? Unfortunately, this is not an issue that's been caused in any way by our the municipalities, but the impact is delivered the assessments based on market value. Market value of land is always going to be higher than the agricultural productive value. That's kind of the problem we see. So the assessments have been delivered. They are what they are, and now the only tool left to prevent that increase of tax burden on this land is, unfortunately, the only tool left is in this room here with the county council to adjust that tax ratio. And the ratios we see on this slide are what would maintain that approximately 5.5% of the total taxes coming from the farm property class. So they would be paying more taxes than they were the year before, just at a rate that is proportional to what they've seen in the past. So it would be based off of their increase in taxes would be based off how much you decide to increase the budget by if you do. So in 2017, because these assessments are phased in over a 4-year period, in the first year would require a ratio of 0.22. In 2018 would require, just about done, about 10 more seconds, 0.2, 2019, 0.18, and in 2020, 0.17. Final thing to note, again, this is not a tax break. This is farmers would still be paying that same proportion of total taxes. Their taxes would continue to increase, but at a more reasonable rate. So that is our request of you today, is to focus on the 2017 tax ratio and a request of 0.22. But I'm sure there are lots of questions and discussions, so I'm happy to open that up. And thank you again for having us here today.
Thank you for that information. I do believe there is a report coming to the committee meetings regarding the tax ratios at the next meeting, but I had asked Councillor Case had a question.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Warden, back to Ben and Al. Thanks very much for your presentation, gentlemen. One of the things that we've been struggling with at the local level, and I fully appreciate what you're doing here, I understand the burden on the taxpayer, especially on the farming side of things, is a reduction in the OMPF. And Ben, you and I have worked on that together with the OFA. I think Mark Wells was the president when we started with that whole thing. So again, I think we need to work together when it comes to getting that OMPF put back in place, because that would do amazing things as far as helping municipalities find their path from a financial standpoint. I know in my municipality, the reduction's been about $800,000 since 2012. That $800,000 comes back in the equation. That's a game changer for a lot of us. I mean, depending on your situation, where you are. So again, I appreciate the presentation, but I guess the question I have, Mr. Warden, back to Ben and Al is, I understand, I think the OFA is still trying to lobby the government to put that money back. There's been some talk, some of the political parties, about putting it back. Again, the question I had to our local MPP in our municipality, in our area, Monty McNaughton, to what level are you going to put it back? It's great, you're going to say you're going to put it back, 2012 levels, or where we are now. So again, just a question back to you, and maybe a status report somewhat of where you guys are now on the OMPF situation. Thank you, Mr. Warden.
Thank you, Councillor Case. Yes. So in at our last AGM, we did have actually a resolution, I believe, from Huron County Federation to look at this issue. And since then, I have met with staff at Western and Eastern wardens, or in the county levels, to kind of discuss how we can go about doing this. I think that the main thing that came out of that meeting that was communicated to me from the staff level of on the municipal side there was maybe it might be best to, while we all agree on the issue that this, the OMPF, but really what we mean by the OMPF is we need more municipal funding. And I think what we came out of the meeting was communicated to me was that the province was not receptive anymore to the OMPF issue. But if the issue is municipal funding, can we repackage it in a way that's rural bridges, rural roads, rural infrastructure? That might be kind of the terms of the day that the province is more receptive to. So that was what was communicated to me by the staff from Western and Eastern counties. And really, it made sense to me, but that's something that now we'll work on at staff level and bring it up to our respective boards for their consideration. But so we are heavily working on that issue of municipal funding in rural areas to deliver that essential infrastructure.
Follow-up, Councillor Case?
Yeah, Mr. Warden, back through to Ben. Yeah, sustainable funding is what it's all about. You can call it whatever you want to call it, but it's a matter of we need to know that we have assurance that there's sustainable funding in place for years to come. It can't be 1 year to the next. We're up 1 year, we're down. In this case, we've been down every year. So I fully appreciate the fact that the OFA is still working on that. We still continue to lobby the government to try to find sustainable funding for rural Ontario. We are the forgotten cousin when it comes to the province of Ontario, and we remind them of that every day. So again, thank you very much. We appreciate your efforts, and thank you again for the presentation.
Councillor Arnold. Is there someone else?
Thank you, Warden Weber, and I'd just like to thank Al and Ben for coming in here today and appreciate their support on what was asked for last meeting when we were going through our budget process. And I know our treasurer and our GM of Finance is bringing back a report. And what that report, part of it was going to see what type of an impact the tax shift would have on other classifications, including the farm residents. And there is a concern out there that if we do too much of a tax shift, then large tracts of vacant land will have their taxes shifted over to the smaller operators that actually have a residence on their farm property. because that's where most of it will go, is onto the residential side. And that'll include all the farm residences because they're not included in the 25% at this time. The other thing I just wanted to touch on was in regards to the ONPF funding criteria. It was changed. And that changed to an assessment-based funding formula. And that was lobbied for by AMO, and it was agreed to by the sitting government, the province, including our 2 MPPs that do have an influence in Queen's Park. They're the ones that are there every day fighting on our behalf, and I think they need to be engaged throughout this whole process. And every grant app that we've put in as a rural municipality has been evaluated opposite the same formula that the OMPF funding has been done. And we in our municipality, we lost $1.3 million over the last decade in OMPF funding. That shift has been done over to the rest of the municipality. But I think it's the funding formula criteria that has to be evaluated and looked at. And that goes back to the Rural Ontario Municipal Association and what they're doing and fighting on behalf of all of us in regards to that funding formula. But when I look around the chamber, we have a number of municipalities that have benefited because of the shift in the criteria of the funding formula. And so when you're looking at Lambton County as a whole and also the province as a whole, no matter what, somebody wins and somebody loses. And I think that's where we have to do the balance here as we look around the chamber of how we're going to make that happen so we can have the perception that everybody wins. So I'll be interested to see how John and his gang have put together their information package for us on what the impact is going to be on the tax shift burden, no matter what that looks like. So I do thank you guys for coming in. Appreciate the support, because we had talked about this last meeting, and hopefully we can come up with something that's acceptable.
Councillor Bradley.
A question for the speakers, but it may go to Mr. Innes too. I don't want to prejudge your report, but I'm having difficulty understanding the issue of the speakers saying that there wouldn't be any impact. The tax, it wouldn't be a shift. Is it to take the money from the assessment growth? And I think it's better to get that question answered while you're still here instead of dealing with the report when that comes in May. So how do you, that's almost a magic trick. How do you do that? There's no shift to anyone else.
The short answer is that if we reduce the ratios on the farm class, it is automatically going to shift taxes onto the other classes. That is just, it's the total dollars that are being raised are still the same. If you're reducing the dollars you raise in one class, you have to raise it across the other classes, and there would be an impact. We are looking at that as part of the report. One of the options that we're also looking at is that every year when you have a reassessment, you have the opportunity to do what is referred to as revenue neutral ratios, which essentially keeps the dollars being raised from each class of property the same as it was the year before. We do have an added anomaly this year in the fact that the province decided that the multi-residential tax class was overtaxed and has put a hard cap on that impacts on our ability to restate the burden there. So we're going to have a secondary reallocation of dollars that are into it. The report will deal with all of that. It's going to examine the impact of the request from the association. It's going to examine what would happen if we do go to these revenue neutral ratios, as I've said, what the impact of the status quo is, but look at it from the standpoint of the entire tax base and what the implications are. For example, if you look at the overall ratios in the broad industrial and commercial classes, we tend to be on the higher side of the average, and anything we do to redistribute tax dollars is actually going to aggravate that. So there's pluses and minuses, give and take. The concept of trying to make sure that we're fair and equitable to everybody is going to be paramount in what we're looking at in the report. I'm not going to offer any conclusions at this point because I have not had an opportunity to consult with your Treasury and tax staff, but I will be doing that before the report comes in the middle of this month.
Make a comment then to the speakers, because I think all the minutia of trying to change these ratios, that always comes back to that The tax system in Ontario, the property tax system, is it's like a tire. We keep on trying to fix it, and we keep on trying to put patches on it, and we've got like 100 patches on there, and it's incomprehensible. It is absolutely incomprehensible trying to understand the ratios and how communities are taxed. And when Mayor Arnold was talking about some communities have benefited, City of Sarnia has received more funding, but we've only received it because we lost assessment. And it is fundamentally unexplainable to the average taxpayer, whether they be in the rural community or in the urban community.
Councillor Marriott.
Thank you, Warden Weber. Through to you, to Ben. Again, Mayor Case and Arnold touched on OMPF, so I won't belabor it much more, just to back up the numbers that we've lost more than 50%. And when we first met Ministry of Finance officials at conferences, they'd say, well, that was 3 or 4 years ago. They'd say, well, you'll make up for it in infrastructure. But those infrastructure programs have only helped water and sewer. So a rural municipality like mine that doesn't have much water and sewer, but yet we have $2 to $3 million in bridges, thanks to their enforced legislation on the annual bridge report or inspection. So here we are 4 years later with no money for bridges. And in fact, the other thing you get from them, they think that they gave us a gift horse with wind turbines. And that seems to be the reason that some of them hint at why we've had enough. Anyway, I'd like to reiterate that OFA needs to work harder on the infrastructure money, because if we think we have a problem now, it's going to be worse over the next 5 years.
Yeah. Comment for that?
So thank you for that comments. And yeah, if you'll take a look at our pre-budget submission, the theme is rural investments. So rural infrastructure is the theme of our pre-budget submission, understanding the need for that roads and bridges. And I think that was the kind of center of the discussion when I met with the staff from eastern and western counties, was that roads and bridges and essential infrastructure is kind of where this needs to be focused. So that will continue. So thank you for those comments. Yeah, we will continue to work on that at provincial level. And I also want to reiterate, hopefully, the opportunity for to work at that at the local level as well. So not only OFA working with Eastern and Western Wardens Caucuses, and hopefully bringing a Northern Municipal Association as well, but Lambton Federation being able to work with Lambton County and so on throughout all of our counties. So, and to the previous comment about the tax, explaining this, how the ratios work. To simplify it, I would say that our request is to keep that tax burden, so the total percentage of taxes from each property class, relatively the same. Understanding that it might oscillate a little bit, but the constant increase over 8 years of one property class and farm is what we're concerned about. So thank you.
Councillor McDougall.
Yes, thank you, Warden Weber, and through you to the Treasurer, if I could, with a request that when your report comes back, that Council be provided information as to what the shift is going, how the shift is going to impact at the lower tier. As it's been said here on the floor this morning, these taxes never disappear; they shift. And I agree that there needs to be a push for more infrastructure funding, particularly in the rural area. My colleague Anne-Marie Gillis has talked through FCM, and FCM seems to be on that one. But I'm really interested as a member of County Council to be able to have a broad look at how shifting burden in rural areas might, and I say might because fairness is important, have a negative effect on some of the settlement areas in the lower tier municipalities, so that if you shift from the agriculture, then you shift, if it shifts over to residential. I think when your report comes back, Mr. Innes, we need to see how it might impact some of the settlement communities, and as others have said, the attraction of economic development into those areas through commercial or industrial activities, because it doesn't disappear, it just moves. So when your report comes, if we could have that perspective, that will be really important for our decision making.
Mr. Ennis?
Well, We will provide some information on that. The quantitative analysis is based across the county as a whole, and we can provide some qualitative discussion as to what the impacts are going to be with regards to that. In general, if we are reducing the burden on the farm land properties, you see a shift of taxes away from small rurals onto the more urban properties and vice versa. So we know that those trends are there. Getting down to the minutiae as to what happens in each individual municipality, a lot of that's going to depend. It's going to be different for each one, depending on the mix that is there, and it's more dependent on what the overall rate is than what on the ratios. The ratio tends to impact more countywide than on the individual, simply because of the mix. The exception to that would be Petrolia and the city, which tend to have and even to a certain extent St. Clair, which have a bit more mix on it. But when you get to some of the other municipalities that have a more homogeneous base, it's more rate dependent than ratio impacted.
Councillor Napper.
Thank you very much, Warden Weber. My question's to LFA there. We were very lucky. We did get the OMPF funding, and I think it's based on your growth. If you got sustained growth, I guess this is the way it works. And we've got a nice mix of residential, and we got a nice tax base of residential, and we got farmland. We work hard to protect the farmland. We worked hard to grow our base. And so I think it's a challenge anymore in the farming areas, especially with roads. I hear a lot of people talking about they're going to put their paved roads back to gravel. It's only because of the heavy equipment and stuff. So it's a real challenge for council. But I think in Lambton, Wyoming, later on today we'll be asking for some land there. And I think the LMF should be supporting that because it pays dividends to the county. Like, we protect the farmland in the county and we pretend on this growth. It's not, it's growth is where you're going to get that funding from. It is, you know, we can get a nice steady growth there, I believe, and we beat the trend in that along with Petrolia, and we've been very lucky. So I would suggest that everybody support me.
Councillor McGugan.
Mr. Warden, members of the County Council, I'm not sure. This friend of mine to my left has taken, I'm not sure what I should say now, but I say thanks for that nice epistle, Lonnie. I'll be very brief. We've got a busy morning. A comment and then a question. My comment is, I say thanks for coming, making your presentation. As you know, we are very rural, a lot of agriculture, 2 small hamlets. And I look at my back taxes, and we do have some that are not paid in Brook Galveston. Most of them do come from the residential area. And if we take whatever the number is, Mr. Innes will have it sometime, we take whatever that number is, and if it all goes on to these few hundred homes that we got, about 400, I believe, I'm just concerned about the impact of them, because we do have to work together. We do have a little commercial. We've had some reasonable growth recently, so we don't want to kill that. I realize it's a tough problem. I understand where you fellows are coming from. Now, on the infrastructure and development and lobbying, I say thanks, but keep up the work, because I go to the ministry's tables at the trade shows, and I ask, can somebody tell me how the OMPF funding is done? And they say, well, we really don't know. There are many factors. I've talked to Mr. Innes. I appreciate what he has done working with the Treasury Department in Toronto, but it's a big challenge. Mr. Napper is correct. My population is going down. His is going up. My productivity on the farms is going up. We're up nearly to $80 million in the municipality of Brook Galveston. With the same roads, we're only producing $20 million. So infrastructure is really important. It's great. My question is, how many counties in the province of Ontario have bought into your program? Because I know our county right to the east of us has not. Am I correct?
Thank you for your comments and question. So the county that you're referring to, Middlesex? Yes. As of yet, they have not, but we have not met with them yet this year. I assume they've locked up their budget for this year, but we'll be meeting with them soon to have a similar discussion. So counties that have adjusted the farm tax ratio to something below 0.25, usually I have a slide. Unfortunately, I don't today. Sorry about that. But right now, we're looking at, of note, Chatham-Kent, recently Oxford County, City of Hamilton, which has expanded its borders to include significant amount of farmland. We still have a meeting with Niagara Region and Haldeman next week. You have Durham Region, City of Caledon, Lennox and Addington out east. City of Ottawa again, which has expanded its borders, includes significant amount of farmland, and a few others. So of note, of the most recent would be Lennox and Addington and Oxford County, which have some of the similarly priced farmland values compared to Middlesex, Lambton, some more of the other more highly valued areas. So Chatham, Kent, and Oxford would probably be the most relevant in terms of Lambton County.
Okay, thank you. Good discussion. Thank you for your presentation, and we'll see where we go with the report.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. We have one more presentation. It's from the Sarnia Lambton Industrial Alliance. Talk to us about the oversized load corridor. If we could have Rick Perdue come within the rail, make the presentation. Welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Warden Weber and county councillors. I'm Dave Moody from Sarnia Lambton Economic Partnership. We've been working in partnership with Sarnia Lambton Industrial Alliance on this project for some time now. I'm going to maybe do a little bit of an introduction on it and then turn it over to Rick Perdue, the chairman of Sarnia Lambton Industrial Alliance, to give you the full details of where we're at. The oversized load corridor, and most of you will be familiar with the concept already, but some may not, so we're doing a little bit of background here. It's a designated protected route connecting fabricators to Sarnia Harbour. The objective is to provide unimpeded export and transshipment of oversized products to and from Sarnia Lambton's industrial base. And yes, it does recognize the fact that it's not just going to benefit those exporting, but also existing and potential new industry bringing in large equipment. The clear passage will improve competitiveness of local fabricators and large industry by reducing shipping costs and create new jobs. And that's certainly of concern to us all. The increased export potential for valuable manufactured vessels, reactors, and equipment modules. And we do have a number of pictures included here so you understand the type of products we're talking about. The route is illustrated here and does connect Sarnia Harbour through to the fabricators that are located along Confederation, as well as the Plank Road area, connects the fabricators out in Corunna and also in Brigden. We've already got local support confirmed by the City of Sarnia, St. Clair Township, the Sarnia Lambton Chamber of Commerce, Sarnia and District Labour Council, my office certainly. Our MP and MPPs have been very supportive all along, and large petroleum Petrochemical refining industries have voiced their support and provided support letters. And I guess most of all, and this is where I'll turn it over to Rick, small to medium-sized enterprises that are represented through Sarnia-Lambton Industrial Alliance. So from here, I'll let Rick give you the full details.
Thanks, Dave. Morning, Warden, staff, and council. Thank you for the opportunity to come in this morning. My name is Rick Prideaux. I'm the owner-operator of a machine shop in Sarnia called Toolroyd Engineering. I've been in business in Sarnia-Lambton for over 53 years now. I'm very proud to be a part of the community and to be a part of the organization known as SLIA, that's the Sarnia-Lambton Industrial Alliance. We started about 4 years ago as a not-for-profit organization that was recommended that the city or the Sarnia-Lambton Economic Partnership, through a study that was invoked, to create a cluster organization of like businesses to sort of bolster the local economy. And it's taken off. We've got over 35 members that pay an annual due. The 35 members employ approximately 2,600 individuals within the community. And we've found that through our working together, we've been able to create some successes within ourselves, and by looking at ourselves and what we're doing. One of the highlights that we've realized that is a necessity to make us more competitive is the invention or the implementation of an oversized load corridor that will allow all of the feeder industry within the community to be able to import and export their products in a much more effective way. It'll also allow the big industry in town to bring in their goods that still puts food on everybody's plate. The sectors that are included within our group are the industrial fabricators, machine shops, engineering, environmental services, water, wastewater, and machining. So with that, we've done a number of things. We see that there's an exact match to the growth in Sarnia-Lambton that suits our industry. It is the petrochemical industry. It's also the bio industry. And we are very good at what we do here in this community. We've got over 5,500 skilled unionized employees. We've probably got at least the same amount that are non-unionized that are going to work on a regular basis. They construct these building blocks of the modern energy complexes, which are kind of known as modules. Any module could be as simple as a pipe rack. It could contain reactors. It could contain pressure vessels. The value of each of those modules could be upwards of, anywhere from $100,000 up to $1.5–2 million. Usually, about 50% of those costs is labor. The labor that's involved are electricians, pipe fitters, boiler makers, insulators, painters, everybody. They're all involved in it. So this is a typical example. This picture appears on the province of Ontario's publicity through the Ministry of Transportation. Was fabricated by one of the large fabricators within our community. Another one that's relative to the size and the perspective of what we're looking to do. The opportunity that faces us is the companies are all located within a few kilometers of the St. Clair River. We have an active port as the Port of Sarnia that's up and running. It's operational. We have a owner of the port that is very willing to provide the services that are needed, and they do a great job with that. So getting our parts to that port on a regular basis with the most ease is very important. The duplicate costs that are involved with the raising and lifting of utility lines, all sorts of things, street lights, it's a redundant opportunity that we see as business people can be negated, and we can make sure that we try to eliminate those redundant costs or duplicate costs. This is something everybody's aware of. It's not necessarily on the route that's projected, but what it is it's if things are mismanaged, this is what happens. And the primary goal of our organization, or not necessarily our organization, but all of the businesses within Sarnia-Lambton is safety, public safety and private safety. So when you come up with a few things, we've had 2 large studies completed, an engineering study and a business case study. The business case study has determined that approximately 2,600 jobs will be created over the time frame. Approximately $12 million to complete the project as what we've done. It'll generate approximately $21 million in government taxes, which I think is a very important part of the equation. It'll also increase the GDP, the Canadian GDP, by $260 million. Up to date, the Sarnia-Lambton Industrial Alliance has raised funds from its membership. It's raised funds from the city, the county, and the province. We've raised approximately $225,000 at this point in time to proceed. The next sort of steps in our goals, we're looking at how we can reflect on all of these items that are here. So reducing the inconvenience, making things safer, increase exports, hiring more skilled people. It's not rocket science. It's something that I've been very happy to be a part of. It's something that I've noticed that everybody we've talked to on all levels have been very pleased to say that they support it. I haven't heard anybody say, well, that's a stupid idea. So that's a good thing. The significant reduction in the cost to ship the modules is just going to create more ability to bid on more work in more places, create more jobs, and these are high-paying jobs for skilled workers. So what we're looking for from the county today is we'd like to acknowledge the fact that the county has put in money in the past to pay for our studies. We've presented the studies back to the county, the city, and the township. So that's what we'd like to do. The recommendation we've had so far is that the city of Sarnia will become the lead on this project, as most of the infrastructure spending will be within the city's confines. And we'd like to sort of establish a partnership between the city of Sarnia, the St. Clair Township, and the county. The county portion is estimate of $2.4 million, less the federal and provincial contributions, so it sort of nets out approximately $800,000 that they'd be looking at for over a few years. By doing this, you'll be supporting the businesses within the county and help them reduce their duplicate, redundant costs of shipping. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. There is a report later on in the agenda dealing with 10A, actually. There's a recommendation there. Questions, Councillor Bruzewicz?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I appreciate the presentation. In my belief, this oversized corridor can be our road to growth, but could also be limiting factors to our growth. Depend how successful we become. And I'm very glad that you mentioned that this is a two-way street. This is not just what we ship out, but what we may need for our local industry here as well. So this is all making perfect logical sense, and I am totally supportive of your effort. And again, this is not just a local micro project, micro scale, just city of Sarnia, because we have to look, to the markets, the border. Can we address bottlenecks and deficiencies there, etc.? Because that's our part of our corridors of transportations. And I know some contractors who in the past have worked far away in the mining sector, some Noranda mines and so on, and sometimes that includes the oversized loads and so on. So, it is not just to have the intellectual inventory of assets as they are, which roads we can use and so on. We also will have to address the hard services that are in existence but need some work on improvements to accommodate the need for transportation structures. And actually the question maybe that I could ask, right now, how do you share? Because I presume you have the inventory of those. You know, I really like the picture you showed. It was one of the overpasses, and I've seen those, especially in the United States, that have been hit by. When you have this oversized load, are you the party to go to really tell them where they can? We know, I don't know what's the database for the contractor, modular fabricator, to really find the road to the destination.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. It's something that's unique at this point in time to each and every contractor to be responsible for the methodology of the shipment that's going to take place. So what happens is there's a permitting process, requires municipal, county, and provincial permitting for all of those sort of loads. There needs to be more details in place to ensure that the permits are correct. A one permitting process would be something that would be certainly helpful, and it would eliminate, well, hope to eliminate the situation that you see with obstructions that are in the way. Our corridor has been selected. We had about 7 or 8 scenarios that we looked at. The one that was selected had the least amount of infrastructure changes that are required and the least amount of obstacles that would have to be dealt with. So the goal is to create one solid route that will be available to all of the companies within the town or the province or incoming people that will be able to look at that and say, okay, when we're coming this direction, we know now that there is a route that's planned out, we're able to get through here. And the duplication of the engineering services to have a report done over every bridge, every different thing, this should mitigate some cost on those sort of applications. So.
Okay, thank you. A follow-up?
Thank you, Mr. Perdue. You have my full support. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Councillor Bradley?
Thank you to both of you, too. This has been going on for quite some time, and the one discussion we've had a number of times, which is really important, is the public consultation. That it's my view in the last number of years, there's a lot of, I call phony public consultation. You know, they put up the little boards and you get little sticky docs, and you don't really engage the public, and they've got an open house for 3 or 4 hours, and it's classed as public consultation. I think that in this case, there's a real need that we have a direct linkage with the people who are impacted by this. Because as much as I support the project, I also watch what's happening in other communities. Anyone that's been following in London, what's happening with the rapid transit debate, where it's just bogged down because of bad communication and bad consultation. So I would hope that when we get to that stage that it is something different than what's been happening elsewhere, which has caused so many problems, because I think most people in this community, the urban community, that would be impacted would be supportive if they fully understand how this is going to function and what the impacts will be on their streets. And that is going to be I think it could become a difficult issue if it's not done properly. So I leave that thought with you for when you get to that point on the consultation process.
Okay, thanks for your comments. Anyone else? Councillor Gillis.
Thank you, Warden Weber, members of County Council. Picking up on the theme of my colleague to the right, with regard to the detailed analysis and the public consultation, I think those two go hand in hand. And in the fall economic statement that was done in 2016 and then followed through on 2017 in the federal budget, we see that there is $10.1 billion over 11 years in trade and transportation projects. The Trade and Transportation Corridors initiatives address this very issue. So one of the things that I'm glad to see is this detailed analysis, because obviously there will be a need to prioritize the investments. And we don't want the big ports of Vancouver and Montreal to scoop up all the dollars. One of the things that has been brought to the forefront at FCM is not only the rural initiatives that we need, but also the trade and transportation, particularly on vital trade corridors. And we fit those bills in spades. So with your detailed analysis, I see that that's the opportunity to get pushed up onto that priority list but also to heavily lobby our MP, Marilyn Gladue, and I know she is a firm supporter of this, and give her all of the tools that she needs to make sure that we are in line and get that money. The other thing is, too, with respect to FCM, what we've been lobbying is for 50% of support from the federal government, and the government has complied on certain initiatives. So we may be able to push that envelope as well. Instead of going to the traditional a third, and a third, I believe it's 50% feds, 33% province, 17% municipalities. So that would work to our favor as well.
Okay, thank you. Quick comment, yep.
Yes, thank you very much. To elaborate on that, we are working very diligently with the MPP and the MP to do that. We've got a conference call set up with them for tomorrow evening with the Ministry of Infrastructure to discuss the actual funding part of it, where our next goal is to have the province of Ontario declare this as a priority project, and then we're hoping that if the federal people say yes, this is also a priority, that both coming together in support of the county, the province, or the county, the township, and the city of Sarnia together, we can make things happen.
Follow up, Councillor Gillis.
Thank you, and that's so key and so very important when you're talking about provincial and federal dollars. If the municipalities aren't willing to give the support and even give some dollars, it's a very hard sell at the upper level. So we're already there. So good luck, and I anticipate great things.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. We'll have that report coming up with a recommendation further on in the agenda. So thank you for that. Council, we'll move on now to item number 6. We have minutes of open session and closed session from February 1st, March 2nd, and March 9. Moved by Councillor McDougall, second by Councillor Gillis. Any questions on those 3 sets of minutes? All in favor of that? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Correspondence, item 7. There's a recommendation that be received and filed. There's 3 items of correspondence that are all concerning the official plan that we will be dealing with later in the meeting. A motion on the correspondence, moved by Councillor Cook, seconded by Councillor McGugan. Questions on any of those correspondence? All in favor? Thank you. It's carried. Item 8, information reports. We have item A and B. Councillor Bradley.
Mr. Warden, I don't have any difficulty receiving and filing those reports. I do have a question on process, on the official plan. There is a motion later on about the draft official plan, and I would suggest all those votes should be recorded on the official plan just for the record. But is it going to be just one vote on the official plan? For example, and I raised the question of the Lambton, Wyoming issue. Is that going to be a separate vote, or is it going to be something someone has to pull out of the official plan to have a vote on the issue? It's more, how are we going to get through this because of the complexity of what we're looking at?
I think what we would like to do is have these reports all be received. Then if there's a motion from any of those reports that we want to make changes to what is being presented as the draft of the plan, that those amendments would be made by council by a motion, and then the motion for the official plan, which is there to bring it back in a final draft at a future meeting.
Okay, so we wouldn't do that during the minutes. We would get to the final. We just receive and file all these minutes, reports, and then we get to the final wrap-up bylaw. That's when that anyone would have the opportunity to move something or delete or add or anything like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we want to make adjustments to it, we would make the adjustments before it goes and asks for a final report.
So then I'll move we receive and file these 2 reports that are here.
Okay. Seconder for that? Councillor Case? Questions? Councillor Napper.
Would it not be better to vote on B right now and let everybody know where they stand on this motion as we move forward? It might influence the end vote for some people.
discussed. It'll be discussed additions or changes to the draft that's been presented prior to the vote being taken on the final. I believe there'll be an opportunity to know through the discussion what council wants to do prior to the vote. Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Warden Weber. And I just want to bring attention to the committee minutes of February the 17th, and I think that's what's under B here that we're talking about now. And I want to go to motion number 6. There should be a correction there that states that after it talks about regulated through the conservation authorities, it's not and natural heritage functions. It was the MNRF, Ministry of Natural Resources, that was referred to during that motion. And also motion number 9, it speaks to the Group A features wetlands west of Highway 40 be removed from map 2, and that was actually supposedly between County Road 36 and Oil Springs line on that side, and not south of County Road 36, because it wasn't supposed to impact an ANSI. If you think if we ever dream that we're going to take something out of an ANSI or any of the government-regulated things, we're nuts. So I don't think there's any sense of, I think the minutes need to be corrected to reflect what was actually discussed that day.
The minutes will be amended to reflect those. I believe that was the direction from the committee. Yes. These minutes were the last minutes of the committee that didn't come back to the committee for adjustment, so this is the time to change that. So this would be, motion is that these reports be received with that correction to the minutes. Councillor Broad.
Thanks, Warden Weaver. Just a little clarification. I have an issue with the residential land supply report. When is my opportunity to address that issue? Is it now, or do we wait till the official plan part of it? When's my opportunity? I just want clarification.
When we get to 10A, we'll discuss that together with the plan. All in favor of the motion to receive these? Opposed? The motion is carried. We have item 9A and B. These are information minutes to receive. Deputy Warden McCharles, seconded by Councillor Gilliland. Question on those minutes? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item 10A, this is the oversized load corridor report. We just had the presentation on that, and there's a recommendation on that. Councillor Bradley?
I'm going to move the report. I'm not doing this for any other reason. I think the vote should be recorded, because it would be my hope it would be unanimous, which I think would then send a very positive message to those other two levels of government.
So you're moving the recommendation in the report? Seconded by Councillor McGugan. Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Warden Weber. I'm just wondering if the mover and seconder will ask for a report in this recommendation on the status of that fund, because I know we've been backing other organizations, taking money out of it, and frankly, I haven't got a clue where we stand. Like, I think that'll be probably $6.5 million that we've just kind of spoken for or predisposed here, and I'd like to understand where we stand with that fund. So maybe as part of this could be a report coming back in regards to the dollars and cents. And I also believe that there was a conversation here just a few minutes ago and talked about public consultation process, and I think that should be part of this motion as well, that there should be a proper public consultation process that's done in conjunction with anything else that happens. So I would ask those to be friendly amendments to the mover and seconder.
Acceptable to the mover.
Okay, so it's the recommendation plus a report on the public consultation and a report on the opportunities and contingent reserves. Councillor McDougall.
Warden Weber and members of County Council, I support both the recommendation and the friendly amendments. Recalling a presentation made to the Ministry around infrastructure funding from the province, the province sent a very clear message to us at the time that local buy-in and local support was very important, and that has been demonstrated both within the industry partners and also the continuing support and binding together of St. Clair, the City of Sarnia, and Lambton County. We've been able to move this project along. I've listened to our MP, Marilyn Gladue, speak to this with great passion and conviction from her engineering background and her career in Lambton County in terms of industry affiliations. We are moving this along with the right steps at the right time, and I think it's important for us to understand both the finance and also developing a plan for public consultation now. And having a report back to the same, I think, will help move that along in a productive way as well. So I think we've done what the province has asked, and I think that Marilyn Gladue has done well with the feds, but I think what we need to do now is to be able to demonstrate, hopefully with a unanimous vote, that this community is behind this project and future economic opportunities for our fabricators and ways and means we can support the rest of Canada and into the U.S. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? All in favor of the motion as the friendly? Oh, somebody asked for a recorded vote. I would ask the clerk to proceed with the recorded vote.
The randomizer selected Councillor Marriott as the first vote. Councillor Deputy Warden McCharles? Yes. Councillor McGugan? Yes. Councillor Napper? Yes. Warden Weber? Yes. Yes. Councillor Arnold? Yes. Councillor Boucher? Yes. Councillor Bradley? Yes. Councillor Broad? Yes. Councillor Brusewich? Yes. Councillor Case? Yes. Councillor Cook? Yes. Councillor Gilliland? Yes. Councillor Gillis? Councillor Hand is absent. And Councillor McDougall? Yes. And that will carry once we hit the tally button. There we are.
Thank you. That motion is carried unanimously. So, item 10B. And this is a report on our official plan. And we have several reports that we have referred here, or that we have received for discussion. So if there's any, how do we want to proceed? Councillor Broad.
Thank you, Warden Weber. I think it's a little premature to accept this draft official plan at this point. That report that I was just referring to, the residential land supply, we're in a situation in Don Euphemia where we could be forced to spend millions of dollars on a village to address a so-called problem that the ministry seems to have, which is fine, but to go ahead and with a residential land supply report, I need a lot more than 5 lots if I have to go and spend millions of dollars in infrastructure for development. And according to this report, I only have a 14-year supply. Another municipality has a 120-year supply. It seems rather silly that I'm going to spend millions of dollars on one hand and not be able to utilize it on the other hand. So I think this report, that came out on the residential land supply, my municipality deserves the opportunity to take this back and review it. It is in front of my councillors at the municipality, so that we can bring back some recommendations or some, because if we follow through today with the draft, I cannot support it the way it is written. So I would make a motion that we defer the recommendation until the June meeting to give the opportunity, at least to my council, and I'm sure there's others, to review the draft.
Second. Second by Councillor Brusewich. Councillor Case.
Well, yes, and I'm not prepared to support this today either, Mr. Warden. Again, we made a statement at Warwick Township Council that we wanted the opportunity as a municipality to review this with our planner and with our residents. So I will be supporting Mr. Broad's motion. Thank you.
So the motion was to defer till June. It was not a motion to table, so I will allow discussion. Councillor Bradley.
Well, June 6th is D-Day, so will it be D-Day on June the 6th? Because I really think this is important, and I don't envy you your job on the process on this. So if we defer all this, because there's parts of it I think many of us would support. So I guess I'm looking for some guidance. I don't want to put you in that spot because I know what it's like when I'm in that spot. So we defer the whole thing to June, and then we get into some of the other issues in June that aren't just part of this other issue, which is very substantial. And then we defer it again. Like at some point, we've got to bring this to a conclusion.
Yes.
My point, Mr. Warden, if we defer to June, will we make a commitment to deal with the issue for the sake of all the people here and all the people that are engaged in this issue? We need to bring it one way or the other to support or not support it.
I believe I'm going to ask Councillor Broad. The motion was to defer the entire discussion around the official plan until we've had the discussion around the land use.
It was to defer the recommendation. There is a recommendation here, and I believe
to prepare the final draft.
Yes.
Right. So we're motions to defer that. Who else? Councillor Case, and then Councillor Gillis.
Yeah, and just once again, Mr. Warden, just to be clear, we as a municipality have not had the opportunity to look at this. We'd like to sit down with our planner. Also, for any of our residents that have any other comments on this, we'd like to hear from them. We were very clear from the start of this process way back that we thought it was very important that it went back to the local municipalities, specifically our municipality, for comment and discussion within council chamber with our own planner. So that's why I'm going to support the motion. But my intent is to bring closure to this sooner than later. But at the same time, we have to respect the fact that each municipality should have the right to discuss this. Thank you.
Councillor Gillis.
Thank you, Warden Weber and members of County Council. I agree with all of my all the colleagues that to the right that have already spoken. It's unfair to bring something like this of this magnitude when none of our planners have had the chance to even comment on it. So I think it's only the right and fair thing to do. But I do concur that June would be, that's it. We either make a decision or we don't.
Okay. Councillor Cook, Councillor Arnold, and then Councillor Napper. Everybody's going to get a chance. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Warden Weber. Just a question then. Has the committee finished sitting then now, or will they still be taking comments from the public or going back for more reviews prior to June the 6th? Will there be more meetings of our committee that you have for the official plan committee, or have they finished sitting for now?
I believe the committee has completed his work. We're done. It's coming back to this council, I think. So when we get the comments regarding this report, it will be coming back to here.
Okay, so just follow up, thank you. So are we dealing primarily with the residential land issue right now as opposed to other comments within the official plan? Or are we going to start back at square one on June 6th with comments that are maybe coming in addition to the land use at that point?
Okay, I think you're asking, are we finished receiving public input and letters and that type of thing? I guess I think that process is completed with the no. We can't stop comments coming in, but the comments that have been received are the ones that we're dealing with to date. So, Councillor Arnold, I think, was next.
Thank you, Warden Weber. And I think before we talk about this next month or 2 months or whatever it's going to be before we see it, I need additional clarification. And we debated this residential land supply and Draft County official plan settlement boundary in Plimpton, Wyoming, and ad nauseum at the committee level, and it, over a number of days, a number of hours, and I got actually quite tired of it myself, but that's all right. And we've had a lot of information come back from folks again, but we're trying to address the intent of the Lakeshore Policy area from the 1998 plan. And we were told that when we went through this, that the only way we could actually address it is either to put it all back to ag with no restrictions, or to turn it into an urban settlement designation. And that's what the committee decided to try to do, was to put it back to an urban settlement designation, because if you put it to residential, you can't have a gas station in that area, which, you need to have some options here, right? And so when we talked about this, and it was because the restricted ag designation that was already there was not defendable at the Ontario Municipal Board. And that's why we made the motion to go back to the Plympton, Wyoming Council to see what they wanted for land quantity, all that good stuff. And so they came back with their number, which we endorsed, and it's part of the grouping that went through. Now, in speaking with the or the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, they said anything that was already pre-designated in the 98 plan would not affect anybody's future growth. Now, when we talked about that at committee, that's not what we were told by our planning group. So all of a sudden there's a conflict there of what impacts what. Because what we are doing, essentially, my understanding and from those that I've talked to at MMAH, is that we're actually downzoning a portion of Plympton, Wyoming, by dropping this Lakeshore Road policy and taking that restricted ag zoning away and turning only a portion of that restricted area into an urban settlement. And I think that's the basis of the report that Councillor Broad had referred to, as well as a lot of consternation that we had going through this whole process. And I know the members of the public and the LFA or the OFA folks, they talked about this as well, because they don't want to see a large-scale bunch of ag land turned into essentially residential through the urban settlement designation. So I really believe that we need a written response from the MMAH in regards to what this actually means. By turning that Lakeshore policy area from the 1998 plan, changing it into the urban settlement designation, and even though we've downzoned and taken a whole bunch of that away through what the motion was from Plympton, Wyoming, and I believe that has to be a backbone of us moving forward in these discussions. Because this is, it's a county, it says it's a County of Lambton plan, but it's actually the minister's plan for the County of Lambton. Because all we do is send stuff up to the minister, then they go out and review everything and say whether it works or not. Because this thing may come back and look totally different than what anything we've seen yet at the end of the day. So I think the MMAH could give us a lot of clarity in regards to especially this Lakeshore policy area that was identified in the 1998 plan. So I would ask that that be a written response from them prior to us talking and debating this official plan in June, if that's the date. And I think that needs to come back as a written response. We've had verbals, but we haven't had anything officially written from them. And I think it would help with a lot of clarity here around the table when you start thinking about your own future growth potential versus not.
Okay, so procedure-wise, I would take that as a motion after we finish with this motion that we request. Okay. Councillor Napper? You had nothing. Councillor Marriott?
Thank you, Warden Weber. Just two comments that were made previous to Councillor Arnold about June should be the drop-dead date. I take exception to that because this is a pretty important document. If we get to June and there's something we need to work on, I don't see why it's either make or break on the June meeting. We've come this far now. What's another couple of months or whatever it takes to get it right? So I take exception to June, whatever is drop-dead date.
Councillor Bradley.
Well, let me ask a question then. When did this process start? And you know, I respect what Mayor Marriott is saying, but at some point you've got to make a decision, good or bad, because I think realistically, I think we're, even if you're not a gambling person, this is going to the Ontario Municipal Board. And what we can do is massage it the best we can. And I do think, and I would hope to the planning people, that on the issue of this Plimpton, Wyoming and the residential, that there would be a direct meeting with the other planners in the county, because this is a very substantial issue on the impacts on the other communities if Plimpton, Wyoming receives this. But I do think we need to get to the point where we make a decision and get this completed in this term of council.
Councillor McDougall.
Yes, thank you, Warden Weber, members of County Council, and as a member of the committee, I've appreciated having the discussions with my colleagues and also this report that was prepared for our discussion today. And also with appreciation for Councillor Arnold in his desire to get some direction or some standing from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing on this particular issue of the lakeshore area. I think it's important for us to understand that in the final draft that came to us last fall, our planners did the best they could in Plimpton, Wyoming, to address an issue that arose from our 1998 plan. And the goal of the planners was to strengthen Kamlaki, Errol Village, and Blue Point, which I believe in that draft they did. But what really knocks on my door is the recent discussion about a significant economic development opportunity in South Lambton, down in Don Euphemia, that would have economic development ramifications of huge positive proportion for the east and south part of the county. And with Don Euphemia having only a very small proportion of the growth for the county overall, to me, that's what this plan is to be, is a framework for 20 years of growth. And if waiting till June to give the local staff and the local councillors a chance to look at this very important report that has been prepared, I'm content with that. But I'm not enthusiastic about going and extending this and extending this and extending this, because I agree with Councillor Bradley. There are a certain number of people in our community that have principled objection to this for principled reasons they really believe in. And as we hold off our decision making, we are also holding off their ability to move forward in the way they feel they need to. So I felt that the plan that came to us in the fall was visionary. It shared growth opportunity. There were a couple of anomalies in there, Point Edward with a limited supply and needing high density residential. But for the most part, this plan is to shape 20 years of growth. And this plan included some visionary look at economic diversification in our rural areas and our smaller settlement areas of the county. And I don't want to hang that up forever. I think it was our county staff's best efforts. This report consolidates the impact of what would happen if we provided 65 years of growth for one of our Federation partners, and leaving the site, the proposed site, of a major economic development opportunity with the lowest inventory in the county. So I'm content to circulate this most recent information to our lower tier staff and councils for them to take another look at this. But I'm also very aware as the committee that at the same time we started to convene our work together, the plan itself as it had come to us at the end of the year was put back to them for thinking as well. So another couple of months I don't think is going to make or break this at this point, but I do want to get on with it because I do want a plan for the future of Lambton County that can shape our growth and prosperity into the future. Thank you.
Councillor Knapper.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to speak here. The intent of Lambton, Wyoming is not to build a mega city out there of all these lots. The whole intent of this thing was to protect what we already have and what was given to us in '88. It was all suggested this was residential out there. And we've been challenged on it, and then we've lost. So it's proven that the what's in the plan is correct. And we at Wyoming's got to bring our plan to match that, not the other way around. But I would think if this is going to go back, I would like to see it go back where it included the original, what we'd already had in there, and put that back in there. But all we were looking for was we got some pretty nice houses out there, and it was illustrated here earlier. It's paying dividends. We're getting the OMIF funding or what it is. We're getting growth, and this is how it's done. And I respect what everybody else has done. There's speculation out there that something's coming, they're going to grow, but this is happening now. And this is why we can afford to keep our farm taxes to where we think they're pretty reasonable. We're in the middle of the pack there. And this is what we got to do. If we want to survive for the next 20, 30 years, we got to start protecting it now. And all we're doing is we got a world-class golf course. We got $1.5 million homes. Somebody can come in there tomorrow and put a barn right in the middle of that, and that's all gone for nothing. We got to protect the investment we got now. We're not going to get any more than 40 houses a year. The market's not going to dictate that. It's been like that for all these years. And so I just... that's where we're coming from. We're not looking to shut Alvinston down if they got a big project or anybody else. And I think it's solid, good planning. And I just don't understand why all the confusion over it.
Okay. Councillor Gilliland.
I guess my point is more of a procedure. I've heard several points made here today. And my question is the committee going to work on these points before June, or are we just going to bring this draft back in June and answer yes or no? Because how are we going to deal with these issues that have come up in the meantime? Do you follow my question?
I believe I follow your question. I believe the committee has said their work is done, and I believe that this report dealing with the Lambton, Wyoming land reserve of residential is going to go to each of your councils and for the discussion, and it'll come back here to the council floor, and council will make a decision whether they're which direction they want to see the land in and put it together in the plan. Whether that's not very clear, I don't suppose. But, and then we're also going to get comments, I hope, from the ministry, as Councillor Arnold has asked for, that will help us with that decision. Councillor Broad.
Thanks, Warden Weber. My intent for the June meeting was I hope to be able to review this, have something back to County Council or whomever in the May Council meeting, and then so that we have something in front of us so that we can take it to the June. If it's part of that report that we don't want, if Don Euphemia's recommendations aren't approved, that's fine. But my intent is to have that information back to this council for a May report of what our thoughts are, and that way that can be either incorporated in the draft or not incorporated for the June. That's my intent on it. And my intent is not to drag it out in June, but again, if we've been 5 years working on it and there's another minor issue or something that we need to resolve for one more month, let's let the 1 month go. But that is not the intent. My intent today is to have a vote in June. That is my intent, to have the information back. Again, if we need to do something, then we have to do it for the June meeting and pass it over to July. That's fine, but that's my intent at this stage.
Councillor Bradley.
I think Mr. Cribbs deserves a difficult question on his last day in this chamber. If I understand, just going back to the city official plan, and perhaps some of the other people from the city can help me out on this, it was appealed, but it was a specific appeal on just a section of the plan. So this county council can approve a lot of the issues in this plan, and there's not an issue. And if anyone has any difficulty, and I suggest to you, even on this Lambton, Wyoming issue, there may be other communities that object to the OMB on those numbers if they're not satisfied. But we have the right to pass the overall plan, and then if anyone appeals, right, they can go to the specifics of the plan and appeal that and not hold up the rest of the plan.
Yes, and at the risk of throwing a hand grenade out there, your local municipalities can appeal the county's official plan to the OMB as well, every legal entity up to and including all of your municipal corporations. But you are correct, sir.
That I've missed. The motion is that this be deferred to the June meeting, and that this report regarding the land use in Lambton, Wyoming be sent to all the municipalities, and that they request comments back as soon as possible so that we can be able to deal with the meeting in June. Any other discussions? Councillor Napper.
Wasn't it supposed to go to a ministry to get some answers, not just to local municipalities? I could probably tell you today what most of the local municipalities are going to. Like, there was a couple of motions out there, and I'm confused as to.
That was a separate motion to get the letter, to get the comments. So this is to defer to June. All in favor of that? Opposed? That's carried. Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Warden Weber. I'd like to make a motion that we refer the 1998 designation for the Lakeshore Road policy, and as well as the proposed 2017 piece of that same area to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing to get a ruling on whether or not that we are actually doing a downzoning from the original intent, and whether that will impact the rest of the municipalities, and a written response from them for discussion here at the county.
Councillor Napper. Questions? Councillor McDougall.
A real simple question, if I could, Warden Weaver, to our staff. Is it likely that we could pose that question and receive some direction back from the minister by our June deadline?
Through you, Mr. Warden. I will look to the gallery for a nod or a yes. And I'll qualify that by we will do our best.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Marriott.
I'd like to start taking wagers on that, because I'll bet quite a bit that we won't see anything by June coming from the ministry based on past performances.
Comment? Yep. Councillor Bradley.
I agree with Mayor Marriott on that. I just ask the mover then, is it what we really want is the legal opinion? And do we have a legal opinion on what you're requesting from the ministry? Is that, or you want it definitely from the ministry, or should we get our own separate legal opinion, which I don't believe. I think it's been a planning discussion, has it not? So would it be worth our while, because of how important this is, to get a separate legal opinion on this through the normal people that we use, Mr. Van Horn, Mr. Cribbs? Or has that been done?
Mr. Cribbs?
I can inform council that has not been done. You are entirely capable of seeking a specialized legal opinion on the question, but at the end of the day, even that will not be determinative to the planners who work for Her Majesty. No answer, and problematically, I'm not certain that any written answer we get back from the province can bind the province either. You don't guarantee it's the same decision makers who are going to review that, and just as you are free to disagree with each other, I'm not sure that the written response will be something you can definitively rely upon either. At the end of the day, the proof of the pudding will be whatever plan this council endorses at some point in time, and it's your endorsement, and then it'll go to the province, and that will be the real test. But you could order a specialized legal opinion if you were so inclined to buttress the argument.
Councillor Napper.
Thank you very much. If you want a legal opinion, I got 5 OMB hearings that I'll give you that we're living by today, and it was the law of the land of that day. And they were just recently made. You don't have to wait very long, because I can get them to you this afternoon.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding the motion? All in favor of that, to ask for the letter? Opposed? That's carried. Any other issues dealing with the official plan for today? I believe that's we'll go on to item number 11, and I know some people have tree plantings and 150th celebrations, so I would call on Chair Gillis to present the AM committee minutes.
Thank you, Warden Weaver, members of County Council. The Infrastructure and Development Services, Public Health Services, Cultural Services met on February 15th, and it is my pleasure to present to you the minutes of those meetings.
Okay, as we go through the minutes, Infrastructure Development Services, item number 1, correspondence. Any questions? Item number 2, report on traffic safety needs. Item number 3, information reports. Councillor Napper.
Can I just ask the question on that traffic needs there? That was the Churchill Line one. Where are we at that?
To you, Mr. Warden. We are drafting up terms of reference to include that with an intersection study for several intersections in the county.
Okay, because I just want to remind you there was another accident out there the other day, so it's...
Item 4, bylaw weight restrictions on loads. Number 5, correspondence. Number 6, quality of asphalt. Councillor McGugan.
Yeah, Mr. Warden, members of County Council, there appears to be a big problem. Does there? If there is, I did not send a letter into Mr. Cole, but there is a problem, and we knew that from the time it was done in Nauvoo, from Brook Line to Courtright Line on the west side, the west path. There is a problem, and the county did get some money back from the contractor at the time. So if you need a letter from the municipality of Brook Allison, we'd be happy to give it to you to at least take a look at it. I think you were out there the other day, and it is deteriorating. So thank you.
Councillor Bruzowicz.
I would like to thank Jason Cole. I believe Ontario Good Road Association had a survey related to asphalt, and I understand the county staff did respond to that.
Yes, sir, promptly.
Yes, and I know, because this issue the Board of Good Roads Association has heard about, and anyway, I would like to thank the county staff for actually prompt response. I know City of Sarnia didn't promptly, but it's happening now, so thank you.
Thank you. Item 7, correspondence in public health. Item 8, information reports. Item number 9, grant application for Lambton Safe Roads. Item number 10, regarding opioid and addiction. Cultural services. Item number 11, regarding culture report, quarter statistics. Item number 12, museums collection report. Item number 13, adjournment. Councillor Gillis.
Thank you, Warden Weber. I move the adoption of these minutes.
Seconder for that, Councillor Marriott. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have a joint meeting of our standing committee regarding the budget. We get a motion on that one-page report. Councillor Arnold, seconded by Councillor McDougall. Questions? All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Our PM committee meetings, I'd call on Chair McDougall to present these minutes.
Warden Weber, members of County Council, the Long-Term Care, Corporate Services, Finance, Facilities and Court Services and Social Services Committee met on the afternoon of February 15th, 2017. I present to you that day's minutes.
Item 1, information. Item 2, committee report. Item number 3, this is agreements for our long-term care homes. Item number 4, accountability planning submission and accountability service agreements. Item number 5, correspondence. Item 6, information reports. Item number 7, court services statistics and activities. Item number 8, correspondence regarding social services division. Item number 9, information reports. Item number 10, regarding a Circles donation. Item 11, 12, and 13 were in camera. Item number 14 was in adjournment. Councillor McDougall.
Warden Reber and members of County Council, I move the adoption of this day's minutes.
Seconded. Councillor Bruzewicz. Questions? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. I have not received any notices of motion. Other business? Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Warden Weber. I just wanted to give a little heads up in regards to some of the greenhouse discussions that have been going on. And nobody here in the community directly affected at this point except possibly ourselves because we have a 21-acre unit that we're checking into. But in meeting with some of the folks down in Essex County and had a discussion with them, and they're really concerned about the amount of phosphorus that's going out into the water after being utilized and recycled a number of times. And it's multiple times higher than the allowable limit to be released into the natural environment. And so they're giving us in Lambton a heads up that any new developments that we have and any existing ones that we have to ensure that the phosphorus levels are regulated and as part of our somehow control, whether it's a site plan control or whatever, that being released into the environment are kept down just like our sewage treatment plants are regulated. And the reason why that they can do that discharge is because they enjoy an exemption at this point of being an ag facility. And so it's just a heads up to those that are talking with people that get them to make a commitment, because there was a rumor when I was having this discussion with a couple of folks that they've exhausted what they can do down in the Essex County area and are looking to go other places because of these discharges. Not sure whether that's true or not, but the seed was planted when we had that discussion. So, and with the amount of issues that we have in not only Lake Erie, but that's going to move into Lake St. Clair because the watershed's starting to change for the new development in Essex County. That water goes into Lake St. Clair, which is a far shallower lake, and will have far faster ramifications than what's gone on in Lake Erie. So just a heads up for those that are talking about development. It's great to have development, but we want good development. And that's all part of it, is the natural world, and especially when it comes to phosphorus and nitrates going out in the environment. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councillor Gillis.
Thank you, Warden Weber, members of County Council. I received a correspondence last evening from Mike Layton, who I sit with on committees at FCM. And Mike Layton is circulating a letter. I'm sorry I didn't bring it with me. I had it on the table before I left, but I will send it forward to you if you would circulate it for me. And the letter of support is asking for an improved recycling infrastructure being allocated into the provincial budget. And he is going to be also circulating this letter at the Ontario Bike Summit, which is occurring next week, I do believe. But he is asking councillors to support it as well. So I will forward that to you, and if you would broadcast that out to everyone else, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll circulate that. Any other? Councillor Napper.
Thank you very much, Warden Weaver. I must congratulate staff for the nice setting they got around here, and it brings to mind that in Vimy Ridge this week, if any of you get the chance, drop out to the Kamlaki Heritage Museum out there. Don Poland's to get put together. You may have seen it in the paper. One of the nicest displays you'll ever see. It's a working module of it. It come from the museum and military museum, and I believe they're open Saturdays, and it's a real tribute, and they've done a lot of work out there, and I congratulate them, and I just extend an invitation to everybody to get out there. I think tomorrow, I believe he's got a little gathering going out there if you're around, but certainly try and get in to see it. It's very worthwhile.
Anyone else? Councillor McDougall?
Yes, Warden Weber, through you as a reminder to members of County Council to the meeting coming up between our AM and PM committee meetings this month, where Mr. Jeff Hogan is coming to present progress on the SWIFT project and his interest in receiving any questions from any of our member municipalities. If they have specific questions they'd like him to address, he's more than willing to receive them before he comes. Just a reminder on that. Staff already circulated that to us.
Councillor Napper.
Yeah, just one more reminder. Tomorrow night, Thursday evening, the Rural Game Association are having their banquet at Kamlaki, and I know you're supposed to have your results in, but I got a little inroad there. I can get you a ticket if you need one, so just see me. I'll scalp you a ticket. Pretty reasonable. It's at Kamlaki tomorrow night. Dinner's at 7, I think, 6:37.
Okay. Notice the bylaws. Bylaw 13 is confirming bylaw. I would ask for a motion for that bylaw. Read the first and second reading. Councillor Arnold, seconded by Councillor Broad. All in favor of that? That's carried. Third and final reading. Councillor Broad, Councillor Bruzewicz. Questions? All in favor of that? That is carried. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Gillis and Councillor McDougall.
Point of
All
order.
In favor of that?
Point of order, though. Prior to the adjournment, could we not say our deep appreciation for Mr. Cribbs' work over the past few years, and we wish him all the success in Norfolk County, and we're going to miss him tremendously.
Very much so.